She was 16 years old when she walked with Martin Luther King Jr. down in Alabama. She has been working for civil rights advocacy and improvement and with the civil rights movement ever since. She has, in the past 10 years alone, she's been honored by the Grand Rapids Times Newsmaker of the Year Award, the Phi Theta Chi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Helen Player Community Service Award, the Calvin College Living Legend Award, the Raymond Tardy Community Service Giants Award, the Theta Chi Omega chapter of AKA Helen Player Award for a second time, and back in October, most recently, the NAACP Walter Bergman Voting Rights and Political Representation Award. So she has been very active, and we are very happy. So thank you again for your patience, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Gertrude Croom.
Dr. King would have been 91 on January the 15th had he not been assassinated. Dr. King had a lot going for him, and I just wonder if there's anything that you don't already know that I could share with you. So I asked myself, well, why am I going? What am I going to do there? What am I going to say? Is it going to be relevant? Will they think it's important? Well, for Dr. King being a scholar as he was, he had a lot of other things going for him. He was a very spiritual man, and he was also a scholar. And in addition to being a scholar, he was a teacher. Sometimes you can be very smart and don't know how to teach, right? You've seen people like that. Oh, they have it all up here, but when you say, well, what you teach this kid, blah, blah, they get tongue-tied. And I taught at the community college in Grand Rapids for a number of years. We don't say how many. We just keep that kind of, quiet. How long? So I know what it means to say you're going to teach. And when I say teach, Dr. King had all of us, young people, around him. And he taught us. He told us, you need to study. You need to do research. And you need to teach those who don't know, those who don't have the means to learn. You need to teach them things. And I was a pretty good student in school. I was a pretty good student in high school. Not to brag much. But so I was one who felt that I could do what Dr. King wanted us to do. What did he want us to do? Well, he wanted us to learn and teach the adult African Americans things about Alabama, political things, so they could pass the literacy test. So they could pass the literacy test. See, Alabama gave a literacy test. In order to vote, you had to pass a test. It was not just any test, not any ordinary test. It was rather involved. So those of us, some of us, I was 16, some others were younger, a couple maybe a little older, but we had to go and study that stuff ourselves. Now, I think in having done that, that contributed greatly to my decision to go into political science when I went off to college. Because, what would I know? What would I know about saying I'm going to major in political science? But having been involved in that and learning all of that, whether I wanted to learn it or not, to that extent, because he was very involved about Alabama's laws, Alabama's elected officials. So we studied. Young people, we studied. We went through all of that. And then we sat down and we taught our elders about Alabama's laws, Alabama's officials. And by the time, when it was time for them to go to take the test, we knew they were ready. We said, oh, how somebody you can feel it in your bones? Yeah, we knew they were ready. So they went to the courthouse to take the test. We waited outside. We couldn't go in the courthouse with them. Obviously, we couldn't go in there. And we knew we had prepared them. So when they went in there, we waited patiently, and finally they came out. We were all jubilant, thinking, okay, here they're going to have all this good news. They came with their heads bowed down. I'm thinking, what's with this? We taught you all this information. We know we left no stones unturned. I said, so you did well on the test? They said, no. I said, how is that possible? said, well, we passed the written test. That's the test you were supposed to pass. That's what everybody had advertised, that you're going to have to go and take a written test. They said, yeah, but you know, what we didn't know, so after we passed the written test, they took us into a back room one by one, and they gave us an oral test. What do you mean they gave you an oral test? Well, they asked some questions about Alabama, elected officials, the laws, and they said we had to answer those questions. Now, even if we had prepared them for such a thing, it wouldn't have mattered, because anything they would have answered was going to be deemed wrong. Whereas on a written test, you know, you write it out and someone has to look at it, and maybe they might tear it up, but for the most part, they were going to look at it. It's okay, you passed this part, now let's go back to the oral test. You're not going to pass the oral test. And so there they were, unable to pass the test. But we told them not to worry. A better day was coming. Well, how do we know a better day was coming? You know, we're talking about Birmingham. We're talking about Alabama. We're talking about a place that was not very receptive to anything for African Americans. But yet we felt a better day is coming. Well, Dr. King had done a lot of things to get Alabama receptive to looking at things that needed to happen. He had been there several times. As a matter of fact, when Dr. King would come to Birmingham, those of us who were students, listen up, young people, okay? Those of us who were students, we would leave school and prepare ourselves to go to what we call a mass meeting. Dr. King was going to speak. The word was out. The word was out. Dr. King is coming to Birmingham tonight. He is going to speak. So we wanted to be ready. The way we had to be ready was to go home and get our homework done first. Get our homework done first. And then go to the mass meeting. It could be a weekday, a weeknight. Now, we didn't have, I was poor. Let's put it like that. Just be blunt. I was poor. So we didn't have a car or anything like we hop in a car and just go. So we didn't have that for the most part. My mother was a single mother. My father had died when I was a young age, and on and on. So we had to walk like 8 to 10 miles to get to this site where Dr. King was going to speak. We had to walk. At 16th Street Baptist Church. A lot of this you're going to see on the video tonight. We had to walk to that church. We didn't mind. We got there. There were some other young people from other places, other schools in the city. We gathered, we talked, and waited for Dr. King to come. And when he came, we were ecstatic. We were happy that we could sit there. But we knew also that when we left there, we had to go back home. If we had not completed our homework, we had to go back home and complete our homework. You were not going to go out of that house that next day and not have your homework ready. To even think that, shame on you, to even think you're going to go out without having your homework ready. I was a smart student. I was in honor society, which I'm sure some of these young people are or will be. I have great faith in that. Yes, I do. And so I knew that's what I had to do. But I also knew there was something else that had to be done. Not that I was in making a strategic plans or anything like that. Dr. King was that we would sit down and listen to him. You can just imagine, you know, I had no way of knowing at that time how important Dr. King would be. I really had no way of knowing. I had no way of knowing what I was learning from him, how important it would be. I had no way of knowing. I was just a person who wanted to do something so that things could improve for us. Things could be better for us. I wanted to know that when I went to the theater, I no longer would have to sit up in the rafters, dirty, smelly place. Could barely see the screen. I want you to know we would no longer have to do that. I also want to know that ladies would identify with this. You men, just hold tight, okay? Just hold tight. Because, you know, my husband, I'm telling you, we won't go there. Ladies would understand that if you go in a store and you see different outfits you want to try on. Maybe some will fit, maybe some will not. You can try them on and see if they fit, right? See how they look. Yeah, thank you, young lady. Got an amen corner right there. That's what I'm talking about. She said, yeah. Even the young knows that she want to go into a store and try on some things. But listen to what we have to do as African Americans. If we tried on anything, it didn't matter whether it fit or not, we had to buy it. If we tried on shoes, whether they fit or not, we had to buy them. And probably one of the saddest things for me was that I couldn't go to the main library. This is a library. I just went to at the main library in Farmington Hills earlier today. But we couldn't go to the main library. The library in Birmingham was sitting up on a hill. Oh, the majesty of it all, people. The majesty of it all. A library sitting up on a hill. And you're standing down and you're looking at that library. And if you were a scholar like myself, I'm not going to try to pretend anything about me because I am who I am. You see what I'm saying? And I knew that I wanted to go to that library. But I knew also, I heard, and some people had testified to the fact that if you go up the corridors where the library is, you go up that main street sidewalk where the library is, you could be arrested. Excuse me, arrested? What's up with this? Arrested. Well, you see, that library was sitting up on a hill and not much more was up there. So if you go up there, your intent was to go to that library. Otherwise, why would you be there? Were you a custodian? Was that you going to work? That's what they would ask you. Say, well, if you didn't, if you were not, you shouldn't be up there. So that library was off limits. We had branch libraries. Now, some branch libraries are very nice today. They're very nice. But in those days, especially those in our neighborhood, we didn't have many resources in those libraries. We did the best we could do. And it took a lot out of us to prepare for whatever we were going to learn, because we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have a Google system. We didn't have any of those things where you could get additional information. But we persevered. So in terms of all those things I wanted to do, for reasons I wanted to do those things, I wondered what was next. What else can we do? Well, there was a man by the name of James Bevel, B-E-V-E-L. And he was a young minister. And he worked with Dr. King. And Dr. King said, you know what? I really don't want the young people to go out on the streets and demonstrate, to march. Because something might happen to them. They might get hurt. You know, because Dr. King preached nonviolence. When he sat down and talked to us, he said, you know, if we go out and do anything, we have to be nonviolent. You can't go out there. If they spit on you, if they spit on you, you have to just keep walking. If they throw stones at you, you have to keep walking. You have to do that. Some people are not cut out to be nonviolent. I had a couple of brothers who were not. Oh, no, no, oh, no. Not that they were violent or anything, but my mother said, you guys are not going out there. Because if you even look the wrong way at someone, policeman or whomever, you could be in trouble. So we had to understand that. So, but James Bevel, Reverend James Bevel said, you know what, Dr. King, I think I can talk to the parents. I think I can talk to these young people. And I think we can get them to do something that the older people cannot do. Well, why would the older people just didn't want to do it? The older people couldn't do it because they knew they would lose their jobs. Some of them were butlers. Some of them were maids. My mother was a maid. My mother was a maid. And so they knew if they were to try to do anything like that, they would lose their jobs. The little income they had coming in would be gone because they wanted to try to march or demonstrate for better opportunities, for freedom, for justice, for the right to vote. So it's up to us. But how are we going to? Dr. King was saying, kept saying, no, I don't want them. And James Bevel said, let me try. Let you try? Yeah. Let me go talk to the parents. Let's see if they will come out. Let's see if those young people will come out. Come out of their schools. Make a statement. James Bevel came, he talked to us. We went to the mass meetings. They talked about who would stand up, who would come out, who would do this with us. And all the adults sat still. And we understood they couldn't. But the young people began to rise from their seats. They began to get up one by one. They began to say, I'll go. I'll go. And as a result of that, they called for us to come out of our schools. Come on out of your schools. Now, I'm going to show you some of the PowerPoint things about the, I hope I got this right. Okay, you see the Children's March, that's the, okay. This is the page I want to be on. I've gotten a little better with this stuff now since this morning. Yeah. My daughter's proud of me. She's proud of me. Yeah, because I got the little click right. You know, the little simple thing. Just clicking the thing. Hey, look what happened here. This guy, name was Tall Paul. Okay, now Tall Paul was a disc jockey in Birmingham. He was a disc jockey. So all the things that we as young people wanted to have heard on the radio, Tall Paul would put it out there. We would call in our schools. You know, you have a little special cheer thing for your schools. You want to call it in. Your school just won this football game. Your school just won this basketball game. Tall Paul would put it out there. I'm calling Auburn High School. How you doing out there? Hey, Auburn High School. That's my high school. That's why I went first. I'm calling Parker High School. How's Parker doing out there? Well, we just won a basketball. Calling Macklin. How you doing out there? So Tall Paul would call out all those schools, all those black schools, calling in to this radio station with Tall Paul. Very comfortable, very familiar with him. But you know, it got so comfortable, so familiar, so enjoyable, and after a while, the white school started calling into Tall Paul. In Birmingham, Alabama, they were calling in, and we were listening. Isn't it a white school? I think so. Isn't that a white school? I think so. Because all our schools were segregated. We had no mingling with the white kids in it, or their schools, or anything like that. But they wanted to be a part of that. That tells you something. So here's Tall Paul. Very familiar with the students, very supportive of the students, very supportive of the young people. So when it was time for us to do what we're going to do, it was time for us to come out of our schools. It's time for us to line up and say what we were going to do. Tall Paul was on the radio, blasting things out, saying, come on out here. He was calling us out. And so we were following his call. And you're going to see some of this vividly displayed. I want to just explain something to you first before I show you the video. But this is Tall Paul, and these are some of the young people coming out. Now, when I came out, when I was going to come out to the streets of Birmingham, my mother was okay with my going. It's an interesting thing about my mother. I mean, interesting thing about my mother. I'm just telling you, people. I'm going to tell you something a little bit later about what she let me do, but I'll hold that for later. Keep you in suspense. The suspense is building. I can see it in your eyes. But my mother let me go. But my best friend, let me see if I can get him up here. See how proud she can be of me. Okay. Oh, here he is. Okay, there we are. I think he said that this could point to, but I'll just point. On the corner there, my best friend, James Stewart. Now, this is me when he and I were 17. This was our high school graduation picture. We had a little party. And this is the picture. It's the best picture I could find, you know. But Stuart and I were best friends. And so I knew that when the movement came about, we're getting ready. This is how Stuart looks today. Pretty much how I look today. Yeah, okay, and no shabbiness there. Nothing shabby about that. But when Stuart and I were talking on the phone the night before we were supposed to leave the schools, and I could hear Stuart saying, "I'll be out there tomorrow. I'll be out there tomorrow." And I could hear his mother in the background saying, "James, you're not going out there." I said, Stuart, I always call him Stuart. I said, Stuart, your mother said you're not going. Now, I know you're not going to disobey your mother. His father had gone to a conference. His father was a pediatrician. His mother was a college professor. So they were from anybody's vantage point, they were wealthy. And I was very poor. What a combination, right? And we were just friends. People couldn't believe that. How can you be friends with somebody with a person of another gender? We were. We went to the libraries, our libraries together. I didn't tell the people this morning about this. I'll just mention this to you because you like good people, okay? I believe you are. When we would go to the library, Stuart had because they were wealthy. He had a car. He had access to his mother's car, so he would come by and pick me up in the projects. He'll come by in the project and pick me up. Now you see Stuart. You can't see it very clearly. You can't even see it clear here. But Stuart looked like he was, kind of. What's the word I'm looking for? White. Okay. But so Stuart would come out to the project where I live, and he would wait. He knew the time and he was going to pick me up. But he would go out to the basketball area where the guys would play, and this is a kind of a rough area where I lived in the projects. And he would be playing basketball around, and some of the guys would say, "What's that white guy out there playing basketball out there?" That's Dr. Stewart's son. You know him. He knows the Grant, so that's Dr. Oh, okay, he's all right. He's good then. And he was good. But he knew that his mother did not want him to go out there on the streets of Birmingham because everybody knew Dr. Stewart. And everybody knew him because he was Dr. Stewart's son. And what could happen to the family if he went out there? The house could be burned down. That's a reality. That was real. So how dare Stewart say to his mother, "But I'm going out there. I'm going out there anyway." And so the next morning, we met at our high school. And as the teacher got ready to talk about what we were going to do, everybody knew because Tall Paul had already announced what we were going to do. We were going to leave the school. And Stewart and I left the school together. And we got to 16th Street Baptist Church. And we were going to lead the crew. We had a group that we were going to lead out on the streets. We had a group that we were going to lead. And when we got on the streets of Birmingham, here come the police. Oh yeah, here come our guys in blue. And they wanted to ask us a question. Stuart and I were leading the pack. We were leading the group. And they came up to us and they said, "Do you have a permit to march?" Well, now, Stuart and I were very smart students, so we knew what they were talking about. But we were very silly also. You can kind of see, he looks like he's being a little silly right there, right? Yeah, I'm about to call him and tell him about that. So when they asked us, "Do you have a permit?" We searched our pockets. And I said, "You have a permit, Stuart?" He said, "No, you have I said, "No, we don't have a permit." The policeman said, "Call the paddy wagons. Bring the paddy wagons up here. Bring the paddy wagons." And they put us in the paddy wagon. Off we were going to go. Now, I'm going to show you, because so many young people turned out, and you'll see this in a few minutes on the video. So many young people turned out that they had to put us in, oops, I went the wrong way. Well, just when I was bragging about myself. Okay. Here we are. They're arresting one young lady. But here we are. We're in Jefferson County's fairground. They had arrested so many young people, they didn't have anywhere to put us. But the beauty of that is that all these girls, and they all had to separate obviously by gender, but these girls, we were from different schools. It's almost like a party, like a slumber party. It was serious, but we were there talking to each other. We were painting each other's nails. Yeah, we're fixing each other's hair. "Girl, you like this hairstyle?" "Yeah, let me do this." And we were having a good old time. But the more they would go out on the streets, the more they would arrest people. And more they had to find more room. It was just getting really bad because they didn't have nowhere to put us. Now, I don't want you to take this lightly, what I'm saying. This was serious stuff. As I said, Dr. King was very concerned as to what might happen to us. Who knows? And when you see this in a few minutes, you're going to understand this was a lot going on out there. I wanted to make sure you had an understanding of it in case time becomes an enemy, because I have some other things I want to talk about. But I want to show you the video now of what happened in the Children's March in Birmingham with all of those kids coming out on the streets of Birmingham, coming from their schools. Jefferson County, not just Birmingham. As you'll see, they've come all over the county. It's such a surprise, it boggles your mind to see it. I went to jail with this group. I was there, as I told you. But that was not the first time that I went to jail. You know, they spoke of Dr. King having been in jail, and then he left and it was so quiet and nothing was happening. But Dr. King went to jail on Easter Sunday in 1963. And I went to jail on that particular Sunday as well. It was Easter Sunday, and usually Easter Sunday, we would wear our finest clothes. We would just be decked out, you know. But that Sunday we didn't. Because we were saying to the people in downtown Birmingham, if we can't shop with respect, we're not going to shop. Everybody expected us to come out. We bought a lot of things, a lot of nice things, all kind of shoes, all kinds of the Easter bonnet. We did all of that. But we didn't do it that particular Sunday. So Dr. King decided that he was going to go to the courthouse and he was going to lie us, stoop down and pray. I asked my mother. I think I alluded to this earlier. I asked my mother, can I go to jail with Dr. King? We all knew he was going to be arrested. Can I go to jail with Dr. King? What? This is not the big student turnout we're talking about. We're just talking about a handful of people going, Dr. King and a few others. I don't know if there were any other students. I just really don't recall. But I know I asked my mother. And I think maybe I should have been a little surprised that my mother said yes. My mother, she didn't say who you're going with, who's going to be your buddy. She didn't say any of that. To this day, I'm thinking, she let me go there. All for the better, as it turned out. But I went to jail. And when I got to jail, the inmates who were there, they were all African-American women because, you know, again, everything was segregated. And in that jail, at mealtime, they sent the meal in. My stomach was churning. I said, I can't eat that. I'm thinking, I can't, what am I going to do? I'm thinking to myself. And the inmates who were there said, you don't want that? I said, no. Give it here. So I gave it to him. First day, second day. But there was a person who was in jail with me. Her husband was an attorney, an African-American attorney in the city. But she looked like she was white. Now, they had to put her in the cell with us, with the other African-Americans, because they knew she was with the Civil Rights Movement. They also knew that she was married to Attorney Adams. So everybody knew that. And so she probably was mixed. But she looked white. So because she looked white, the guards there figured, well, she, you know, I don't know why she's there, but we're going to make sure we give her the privileges that she deserves as a white woman. So they did. They allowed her to go to the canteen out in the jail area and buy stuff. She could buy food. Her husband would supply her with money. She could buy food. And when she bought food and other things, she provided me with some of those things too. To this day, I think about, because I was the only young person in that cell, remind you. To this day, I think about Mrs. Adams. And I think about how she probably saved me in that jail. The first time I'd ever been incarcerated, she saved me. I knew I would never be able to eat the food, and I didn't have to. She had a mattress they gave her. Nobody else had a mattress. They had some little flimsy thing, but I had a mattress also. She saved me. She really did. So that was the first time. Second time, of course, with the young people, all of us turned out in great, great numbers. But the third time I went to jail, Dr. King was going to go to a city. He was going to go to St. Augustine, Florida. Anyone know the importance of St. Augustine, Florida? What is it most noted for? There we go. I got one in every group that knew the answer. The oldest city in the United States, St. Augustine, Florida. Okay? So we were going to go there to help the young people. Dr. King wanted us to go there to help the young people learn what they needed to do to fight for their freedom. So there we were in St. Augustine, Florida. And you know, by this time, I had been in jail 2 times already. So I'm like an old pro at this thing, you know? I'm like an old pro. And being an old pro, I'm also going to have an attitude. I'm going to have a little swag to me, you know? Because I'm going to go here and help these young people, these local people, young people, know what they need to do to help get them some rights. Because once this was over, and I regret that we couldn't show it all, but once it was over, Birmingham opened up, and a lot of things, I went to the library, all that stuff happened. We're going to help them. Well, we're out on the streets of St. Augustine, Florida, and here come the police. Where is your permit? And this time, so it was not with me. I was just kind of like out in front by myself. And so I said, officer, and here I am, now, Southern culture, Southern norms said you behaved a certain way, you spoke a certain way, you responded to people a certain way. You knew you were supposed to do this. So Southern norms said when a police officer spoke to you or an adult spoke to you, and black or white, you had to say, yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. My mother was kind of alarmed when I first took my daughters to visit her. My daughter could tell you. And she would ask them a question, and they would say, no. She said, did she say no to me? And she says, and how are you doing? She said, yes, I am. Did she just say yes? Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. What's with these kids? I don't know. Maybe I'm training them right. Well, I don't know. But the norms were such that I knew what I was supposed to say. So when he asked me about a permit to march, I said, no, I do not have one. But I want to talk to you about the Constitution of the United States. Oh, here I am, folks. I'm big and bold and brave, okay? All right? And so I'm strutting around. I was telling the group this morning, I'm strutting around like a peacock. Not realizing that the peacocks, the pretty feathered peacocks, we're all male. We know that. We know that. Yeah, we know that now. But nevertheless, I'm strutting around like I'm somebody very special. So the police officer is observing me. He's seeing what I'm doing. And so he said, since you guys do not have a permit to march, I am going to call the paddy wagons, just like they did in Birmingham. Call the paddy wagon. They were big on calling the paddy wagons. They called the paddy wagon and they put them in the paddy wagon. Did you hear me say put them in the paddy wagon? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because the police officer told me I was special. Of course, I knew that. I'm the leader of the group. I've been the leader back in Birmingham. I've been chosen by Reverend Bevel's. I'm special. So he said, so you're going to go in my cruiser. Okay. I'm saying bye to my friends, going in the paddy wagon. Police officer opened the door to his cruiser. And he's putting my head down and I'm going in. And as soon as I got in, sitting there on the seat next to me was a huge German Shepherd dog. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And the dog is slobbering and spitting all over the place on the seat. And I'm just kind of trying to get away from him, but he just keeps. I'm thinking. And the police officer is looking through his rearview mirror at me. Got a smirky look on his face. And he's beginning to continue to ask me questions as we're driving on to the jail. And I perked up real quick. All of a sudden, those cultural norms came back to me. It's funny how you can remember things so quickly. All of a sudden, I'm saying, yes, sir. Oh, no, sir. What are you saying, sir? Can I answer that for you, sir? I was really very humble. Well, he took us to the jail. My friends were there. By this time, the paddy wagon had gotten, the friends were there. They were all going, putting them in, booking us all. You saw the picture they were taking. They did that there. I probably got well, I know I have 2 pictures, police photos in Birmingham, and I know I probably, unless they smashed the records, I have one in St. Augustine, Florida as well. But they got us all in there. And we got in there, and we had a guard who was a guy who was over us. And he would come in every day. He wanted to be kind of snippy. He wanted to be kind of smart. He wanted to be kind of nasty. But he had his personality would not really allow him to go that far. But he said, you girls, you come in, you better make sure you eat your food. You better not cause any trouble in here, and blah, blah, blah. And so, and on and on. So every day he would come in, he would say that. His name was Bob. And when Bob came in, it probably was our 3rd day there. Bob came in. He was not in his regular uniform. Bob was dressed in a suit. He had a nice tie on. And so we were going to just mess with him a little bit. He said, Bob, where you going? You got a hot date, Bob? I said, look at you, look at Bob. Doesn't he look sharp as he can be? And Bob just looked at us. Bob was not his usual self. And Bob said, no, I don't have a hot date. He said, I'm going to a funeral. He said, one of my family members has died. Now, the humanity in us came out, those girls in that cell. We recognized, we could feel Bob's pain as he was talking to us. He sounded, and he looked so sad, saying, a family member has died. He said, but I know you girls will not be here when I come back. I don't know if I'll be back tomorrow or not, but you girls you better conduct yourself the way you know you're supposed to do. You girls better do that. And I'm saying you girls because that's what he said. You girls better do this. And I say this, and I can't vouch for it 100%, but as I looked at Bob, I think I saw a little tear coming out of his eye. I think I saw a little tear coming out of Bob's eye. Not only was he sad because someone, his loved one, had died, but I think Bob was genuinely sad that he was going to miss us. That humanity, he had a camaraderie with us. We were teasing him back and forth despite him trying to be huffing, puffing, gruff, and all that stuff. We had a relationship going with Bob. He began to think. I didn't think about this at that time. But later on, I began to think, people are people. When I taught at the community college, about 95, maybe more than 95% of my students were white. Didn't faze me one bit. Did not faze me one bit. Good people. Good people. But Dr. King reminded us, and when we think about good people, you think about how much better it could have been. What if? And Dr. King told us this because he was a scholar and he was a teacher. He said, what if the founding fathers had not put in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution? What if they had not put in that part of the Constitution that the southern states could continue to import slaves for 20 more years? After the Constitution is written up, you can still bring in more slaves because the southern states said, we're not going to ratify this document if you don't. So to give in to the southern states, said 20 more years. Now you say, well, if they had not done that, the southern states were probably going to breed their own, which they would do, which they did. But it's one thing to say they're going to breed slaves, just take a random male and a female and just breed them so we can get more slaves. We knew they were going to do that. But at least it was not going to be in the Constitution. At least it was not going to be the supreme law of the land. But the supreme law of the land had Article 1, Section 9, that said you can continue to import more slaves. Why didn't we call it to an end when we had this Constitution? Why didn't we make a new beginning? You think about all those things. We had a chance to make a new beginning. Say we no longer have slavery. No longer are we going to import slaves. But the southern states had to be appeased. They had to be allowed to say, this is what we want to happen. Well, you said, well, Lincoln is going to say today. Dr. King said, about Abraham Lincoln. We said, yeah, we knew about Abraham Lincoln. All of us, you heard, kids, I'm sure have heard. Abraham Lincoln was going to free the slaves. Abraham Lincoln was going to be over the Civil War, and he's going to free the slaves. That's the purpose of the Civil War. No. Purpose of the Civil War is not to free the slave. Purpose of the Civil War is to keep the Union together because it was cracking up, it was breaking up. Southern states were making certain, like those importation slaves and all that. So Lincoln was not, he didn't have the North to go to war to free the slaves. He wanted to save the Union. But he wrote this Emancipation Proclamation. And his Emancipation Proclamation, he called for the freedom of the slaves. And you said, well, that's what we're talking about. Lincoln freed the slaves. But you know what? When Lincoln freed the slaves, he said, he called in a group of black leaders. He said, now, with these slaves are going to be free, what I'm going to do, I made arrangements to have them go to South America. Millions of slaves going to South, will be free men, going to South America, to Panama. That's where I want them to go. And that's what he was looking at. That's what Lincoln had planned. Lincoln didn't call for, Lincoln said, I don't believe in slaves having the right to vote, free men or not. I don't believe in slaves, free men or not, having the right to hold public office. I don't believe in that. And I certainly don't believe in letting them intermarry with our whites. I definitely don't believe in that. So Lincoln was not looking at these people, free people, who have the same rights as all other free people in this new democracy as we had broken from the British. And we were saying, let's start anew. But Lincoln didn't do it. But Lincoln, as we know, Lincoln was assassinated. And Dr. King said, well, who do you think took Lincoln's place? Well, we knew a little bit about American history, but we didn't know much. We said, well, some guy by the name of Johnson, Andrew Johnson. Yeah, Johnson took his place. And you think things were kind of bad with Lincoln? Johnson was born in North Carolina. Johnson grew up in Tennessee. His political life was in Tennessee. He was on the ticket with Lincoln. Johnson was a Democrat. Lincoln was somewhat of they call him the first Republican. But Johnson took over. But Johnson's heart was with the South. And he had said that there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to hurt the South. There's nothing I'm going to have them to do that's going to hurt them. Because, see, when Andrew Johnson was president, the 17th president, he said, now, these slaves, they're supposed to be free people, but we're not going to let them do anything that the South is going to be upset about. So he said, well, but Lincoln has said, and it was in all the provisions, that in order for the southern states to get back into the Union, they had to ratify the 3 Civil War amendments. They had to ratify the 13th, which said that the newly freed people will have freedom. They'll be free now, no more slavery. Number 2, they had the 14th Amendment. Said, now they're going to enjoy the same basic rights as all other citizens. Think about it. Here's the 14th Amendment saying, enjoy all basic rights as all other citizens. And then the 15th, it's going to give black males the right to vote. So Dr. King is saying, did you know all of that was going on? We said, yeah, we knew that. We knew that. See, we're learning. This is why I'm telling you, when I decided to major in political science, I had a foundation already set for me, a foundation I could not have seen. Not coming from my high school, even though I had a good high school, good teacher. But this foundation, what Dr. King was trying to say, you have to understand, even though he did not want us to go out there in March, he was very fearful. But he wanted us to understand why we needed to say no. Why when he wrote that letter from the Birmingham jail, he told those white clergymen why we can't wait. This is why we can't. Look at what's been happening to us all these many years. You still allow the importation of slaves. You're still saying blacks cannot be free. And you know that 40 acres and a mule. Remember that? Remember that was kind of something people. Did you kids have 40 acres and a mule? You ever heard of that? I guess you wouldn't, because it didn't happen. I mean, yeah, they talked about it, they wrote about it, it's in the books that when the slaves are free, they're going to get 40 acres, they're going to get a mule so they can start out anew. 40 acres and a mule never came. The 40 acres of land, so you can start out as a free people, never came. Imagine you're out there. I'm going to have to just digress for 1 minute, if you pardon me. Sometimes I marvel at how our people survive. I really do. If I were not black, I still would marvel at it. How did you survive all of this stuff? How did our ancestors survive all of this stuff? I don't understand it. How strong can you be to do this? I don't know how strong you have to be to do this, to survive all of that, forcing you to have a relationship with somebody, forcing you to have kids, force all of these things, forcing you to pick all this stuff. And then finally when you're free, and they're saying you can get 40 acres and a mule, you're not going to get 40 acres and a mule. You're not going to get anything. So Johnson Because the Republicans controlled the Congress at the time. Johnson was a Democrat. Republicans controlled the Congress. And they said, in order for those southern states to get back in the Union, they must ratify those 3 Civil War amendments, 13, 14, and 15. And Johnson said, I refuse to have them, what he said, Africanize the southern states. They're going to take over, you remember, because there's so many African Americans, blacks in the South, because that's where they would take them to do the cotton and all the other stuff. He said, if we free them, really free them, if we give them the right to vote, the whole South is going to be Africanized. Can't do this. So Johnson was just steady saying, no, we're not going to do it. And his Congress, the Republican Congress, they were called the Radical Republicans. The Radical Republicans were saying, you have to do it. But Johnson, even though he didn't have the strength to really keep it from happening, he had the court on his side, the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no. You see what happened, the Supreme Court said? You had these 3 Civil War amendments passed by Congress. You're actually letting the Congress take over powers from the states. You see, you have to go back into our history and see, even with the Articles of Confederation, you have to see what the states were expecting to happen when this country was brought together. The states saw themselves as independents, right? Independent entities. Articles of Confederation. Each state is an entity within itself. Didn't have to answer to anybody. Now we got a Constitution. Constitution saying that they have to do this, do this. No, the Supreme Court said. We are not going to allow them to take the power from the states and give it to the national government. Well, Johnson carried this madness on for as long as he was in office. And it went on and the Supreme Court followed through. But you know what? There's one thing, oops, it's no longer up there. I talk about the 2 Johnsons. Imagine you had a Johnson in the 1860s who took over after President Lincoln was slain. You had a Johnson who was from the South. You had a Johnson who was a Democrat. In the 1960s, you had a Johnson, Lyndon Johnson, who's from the South, from Texas. You had Lyndon Johnson, who was a Democrat. You had Lyndon Johnson, who had taken over from a slain President Kennedy. Imagine the similarities there, except Andrew Johnson said the blacks will have no rights whatsoever. Lyndon Johnson said, you know what? The right to vote is a foundation right that should not be denied to anyone. The right to vote is the essence of a democracy. When you take away the right to vote, you're taking away what we consider to be what we're all about. What we're all about. And so Johnson pushed through. He pushed the 64 Civil Rights Act too, which opened up a lot of the places I tell you we can go to nationwide. But Johnson signed the 1965 Voting Rights Act. But what really angered the Southerners at that time, they used to love Johnson. He was from Texas. He was a good Southern guy. But what really angered the Southerners, Johnson had not only the audacity to sign this thing, he had the audacity to speak on TV and say, upon signing it, we shall overcome. Imagine using a theme from the Civil Rights Movement to say, we shall overcome. Dr. King wants us to know all of this. You see, you can't expect to do anything about history if you don't know your history. If you don't know what happened. If there's some people just telling you some things and that's not the truth. Dr. King spoke the truth. I always try to speak the truth. When the 65 Voting Rights Act was passed, before the 65 Voting Rights was passed, Alabama had 14% of the blacks registered to vote. That wasn't so bad. Mississippi only had 5%. After, in 1966, there was only 3 states that did not have 50% or more of blacks registered to vote. The 65 Voting Rights Act said that this is what it should be about. That people, now, it doesn't mean that we live in a bed of roses. We got a lot of things that we still have to work on. We have gerrymandering that's still going on. Dr. King would probably be disappointed. He would probably be disappointed to know that we're still trying to find ways to deny people the right to vote. He would say, why can't we? Why can't we do better? And we can do better. We can believe that this is a country that everybody should enjoy. All the fruits of the country, all the fruits of their labor. They have the right. They have the potential. But the more we pour people down, you know the saying, you have to be down there with them, right? You have to stay down there to keep them down. You have to be down there with them. I've said a lot tonight, and I appreciate your being here and being very attentive. So what I want to do is I want you to join with me in this song. We're going to end this tonight with this. I don't know if some of you have questions, and I'll be more than happy to do that. But let me go through it again. And some of you probably know this song. I just alluded to it at the beginning. This land is your land. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and you did well. Let's do it again. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Islands, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Thank you.
Thank you.